Welcome. Today, my name is Chenny Britt. I'm joined by my boy Damon. We run the Winter Hill Warriors, and today we're going to cover episode 6 of Shogun. What was the title again, Damon?
I believe it was Ladies of the Willow World.
Ladies of the Willow World. Okay, so let's get into it. Crazy ass episode, and basically, one like everything right now is just getting so fucking crazy. Love this show, so we're gonna deep dive it, break it down scene by scene. Uh, I'm kind of the play-by-play guy. Damon's gonna give color commentary, and we're gonna have a blast. We're gonna have a great time. So let's move it into the main template. And all right, let me just make sure I'm on the chat. Okay, without further ado, let's start. So we start off the episode with a flashback to 22 years prior, where we see young Mariko and her father, Akechi Jinsai. Now, I believe from the last episode, they said that her dad was the one who killed the previous lord, right? His name
Yeah.
was Kuroda, and Kuroda was basically setting up shop at Azuchi Castle, and he was at that time the most powerful warlord in Japan. He was the previous ruler of Japan before the late Taiko, and he was a ruthless bastard. But his daughter is actually fucking Lady Ochiba, who at that time her name was Ruri. So Mariko ends up befriending Ruri because her dad, Akechi, ends up pledging his loyalty to Kuroda. So it's pretty crazy because, as we mentioned earlier, Kuroda is ruthless. So we do get this quick scene where he's just beheading a bunch of monks, and that really seems to piss Mariko's dad off, and he almost intervenes. But then we see a young Toranaga holding him back, which is fucking wild. We also get some more just like scenes of them growing up, and by them I mean Mariko and Ochiba, who at that time, as I mentioned earlier, was named as Ruri. And we see that Mariko was training, and she got really good at fighting with the spear weapon. I think it's called the Naginata. But obviously, the good times don't last long, and Mariko's father marries her off to Buntaro, who is actually from a less influential clan. So she's kind of like, why am I downgrading to this dude? And she's devastated because she's got to leave everything behind, including her best friend, Ochiba. So, what'd you think about that quick flashback before it took us to the intro scene?
I think this episode was really clutch in terms of filling us in on some background for a couple of characters that we really didn't know a whole lot about their previous life. You got the little peek at Mariko's previous life during last episode, that Saki showdown between Blackthorn and Buntaro, but we got a much deeper look this time around. And we get more on Lady Ochiba, who this thus far has been kind of like a mysterious figure in a way. We do know where her allegiances lie. She's just taken a side with Ishido here. But I thought it was cool to see that both of these girls started as like friends, and then they became women on very different paths. But neither of them seems to have like really come out okay, if that makes sense. Like they're both a little affected by what happened in the past, to say the least. And the connections of Toranaga run deep. This guy is a player. Like he makes moves. He's always scheming. And this is just another example of one of his plots. It was kind of interesting to see that you couldn't really operate in a manner of like, oh, I think this is right, so I'm going to stop it, because Mariko's father like wanted to make the move sooner when he saw all the brutality taking place, but had to take his time in a political manner. So like the guarded nature of politics at this time in history is still really funny to see to me.
Yeah, agree with all that. Precedent, all of that matters a lot. Um, so after we get that quick flashback, we then go to present day, and this was pretty funny because when we were making this presentation, I had Damon export a bunch of clips as well, and he titled this clip "Blackthorn Getting the Max," and that's exactly what Blackthorn gets. He gets a max contract. Um, they're basically back at Toranaga's camp, and obviously they just got hit by that ruthless fucking earthquake, so they're mourning their losses from the earthquake. Toranaga's army, which by extension also included Yabu, a ton of Yabu's guys, they're decimated, right? So they're now weak for war. They're ripe for the pickings, and they got to mourn all of their dead. But at the same time, Toranaga gives Blackthorn an insane reward. He signs him to a max contract for saving his life. So he makes him the chief admiral of the Kanto region, and gives him the general of the Cannon Regiment title. Earlier in the previous episode, I thought he had given that to Omi, but I guess he just gives it right to Blackthorn. So Blackthorn gets it. So Omi never really had it. And Blackthorn also gets his own fief near Kanagawa, worth 500 koku. So he gets land and just a territory that he can run, which is just an insane deal. Omi is fucking pissed because he just realizes that he lost his spot. What did you think about Blackthorn signing the Supermax contract?
That timing was really tough, as you mentioned. You just see a bunch of dudes die. Things are looking a little south. You think Toranaga might be a little in over his head because of Nakato's. It's like the fifth time I've done that. Goddamn.
Navocado is hilarious.
And you just think things aren't going so hot. Probably isn't a great time to open up the checkbook for a barbarian, but here we are rolling out the red carpet. I think he was even a little stunned. It was almost like, oh, really, me? That was his reaction to this whole deal. He's got a huge target on his back, but I mean, as he already is, being a British guy in the middle of Japan right now, he already does. But this is going to be a real test of Toranaga's decision making, because I don't think he can afford many more publicly held losses and still keep the entire morale. Because that Yubu and Omi are still pretty precarious about how they lie here. The war cry, though, man, that war cry is so sick. Every time they do that, I get chills.
Yeah, it's so fucking badass. They're like, hi, hi, ho. It gets so, it just gets me fucking ready to go. But yeah, tough timing, like you had mentioned, giving somebody the Supermax right after 60% of your army is destroyed. All right. So, Yubu and Omi are kind of talking to each other, and Omi's panicking because he's like, how the hell did, the pilot, the white guy, get control of the Cannon Regiment? Omi's thinking about his own career and what he just lost out on. Yabu's actually thinking bigger picture for once, and Yabu's like, dude, fuck all that. You know how many guys we just lost to that earthquake? None of this matters because we will get destroyed if we face Ishido and the rest of the region. It's we have no chance, man. And so Yubu actually doesn't care about any of these titles. He doesn't even seem jealous of Blackthorn because he thinks, what's the point? They're all going to die anyway. So he actually commissions that young boy, that young scribe, to commissions him to write another will for him. Which is pretty funny. So what did you think about that?
Omi's clearly got some tunnel vision going on. He still thinks it's all about him climbing the ladder, and he just doesn't really see the forest or the trees, if you will, because it's all a ploy just to kind of keep him more towards Toranaga's side, I think, to give him that fake title in the first place, because Toranaga didn't even really believe that he deserved it. He was just trying to pay Yubu a little bit too. So, it's just kind of how it goes in times of war. Yubu is in full acceptance mode. He's like, dude, no, we are in trouble. This is going to be a problem. You don't really get what's going on. We're going to die. You got to really get with this. So I do respect the fact that Yubu is thinking like this, because to me, it means that he knows there's no going back to Ishido now. He is down for the cause, whether he likes it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yubu is locked in for better or for worse. All right, so then this is just a quick little scene. Thank you, Will Flexner. This is just a quick little scene, but Blackthorn is back at his crib and he overhears Mariko uttering a prayer. She is Catholic, and he prays along with her on the other side of the door. So just a quick little scene, nothing crazy there. If you want to mention anything on that, or we can keep going.
To me, it's just the fact that they have that connection with each other. Even though Blackthorn's Protestant, they still have the same background of Christianity. So it was a nice little shot over the top there where you see both of them praying at the same time. So we get the sense that all is not lost here in terms of those two.
Right. And then Toranaga's holding court, and Buntaro is apologizing for his pretty shameful behavior. Not only did he put his hands on Mariko, he did it in what's it called, Blackthorn's house, which is obviously really bad. And on top of that, Blackthorn is now the Hatamoto, and he actually just got a promotion, so it just looks really bad. And Buntaro basically brought shame upon himself, and he embarrassed Toranaga. So he's just apologizing profusely for the shit that he just did. And Toranaga's just like, dude, why don't you just divorce Mariko? Like, you clearly don't love her. But I guess in some sick way, Buntaro does love her, and that's kind of what he says. He just says, look, she's always been icy with me. She's never liked me. She's never loved me. And I'm the one who spared her life. She wants to commit suicide, but I'm the one stopping her. Why doesn't she love me? And the second that she spends with Blackthorn, she's already smiling and is just acting different. So he's pissed and he's jealous. And we actually see a glimpse of how Buntaro actually feels. And Toranaga doesn't give a shit about any of this. He's just like, stay away from her for 7 days. That's that. Those are your orders. So what do you think about that?
The level of power just to be able to tell one of your boys, like, nah, man, you gotta chill with that girl for about a week. You gotta let her go for a week, man. That's some real power. But it's that situation where, you like this girl and all of a sudden you notice that she's kind of dry with you, right? But she's giving this other guy way more play. That's the situation Buntaro was in, only that's been his wife of many years, so times that by 20. Mariko only being warm toward Blackthorn really just kind of shows you the difference between the two characters, right? Buntaro's a face value guy. He sees only the surface. Blackthorn gets Mariko. I don't know how else to put it. I sound like I'm trying to script a 2000s rom-com, but he just gets her, man. Simple as that. Sometimes you just got to take the loss.
Yeah, that's a good point. He does get her, and it's just straight jealousy. It's just straight jealousy causing him to lash out, and it's obviously not helping his case at all. So let's keep it moving. At this same time, Blackthorn pulls up, and they actually cross paths with Buntaro as he heads to a 7-day exile. And Blackthorn's still trying to get his ship back, and he's getting his men back. So he's asking Toranaga for that. We know Toranaga's not going to say yes, but Blackthorn ends up trying to sweeten the deal a bit. He says, look, man, if you give me my ship, I'll stay in the Japans, and I'll be able to fight the Portuguese through my ship. I can attack their trading ships, such as the Black Ship. If we can cripple their trade, then we can weaken them financially. It's going to weaken Toranaga's, I misspoke there, but it's going to weaken Toranaga's enemies on the Council of Regents that are Catholic, such as Kiyama and Ono. Toranaga doesn't really see any reason to attack the Portuguese right now. Remember early in the season when Blackthorn kind of gave that whole speech where he exposed that the Portuguese and the Spanish had split up the world in half, and Toranaga was shocked for the first time? You remember that, Damon?
Yeah.
So when that happened, I felt like Toranaga was going to turn against the Portuguese right away, but I guess right now he's basically just thinking to himself, there'll be a threat down the line. Right now I got to take care of the domestic Japanese threats. So Toranaga has no plans to attack the Portuguese. Blackthorn is pissed, but it doesn't matter. Toranaga dismisses him. He does not grant him his wish. And as Blackthorn leaves, Toranaga tells Mariko to stay, and he basically tells her, look, you're going to order a hooker for Blackthorn because we need to get this guy laid, because Toranaga doesn't know yet that Blackthorn has already smashed Mariko. So he tells Mariko, look, you're supposed to get Blackthorn a courtesan, aka a prostitute, and I want you to be there. So this part is crazy. He wants Mariko to be there for quote-unquote translation purposes and in case Blackthorn says anything during sex. But really what I feel like it is just to test out their relationship, because Toranaga can tell that something is going on between them. They're bickering like a fucking married couple. He senses that they probably did some shit, but he doesn't know yet. So this is kind of two birds, one stone. See if Mariko acts up and gives up what they actually did, and or get Blackthorn laid so he could start thinking straight. What'd you think about that whole like exchange, all of that?
To me, the fact that Toranaga shows the restraint against going for the Portuguese just shows how pragmatic he is as a leader. And we saw a little bit of it when he holds back Mariko's father earlier in the episode during the flashback from making a move. He's looking for the right time, and he also, probably doesn't want to piss him off right now when he's got so much going on. The exchange with Mariko was a whole different story, though. The solution is kind of interesting. Like the goal is definitely to test Mariko. Like if she can't witness Blackthorn going to bed with another woman, then it proves that she's not really built for this. But at the same time, if Blackthorn sleeps with another woman than Mariko, she has an out and a cover up for anybody who thinks that she might have already slept with him, because I'm sure it's gotten around a little bit. If Toranaga can already see it, I'm sure other people have already seen it. It also lets Toranaga remind Blackthorn who's in charge, because even though he is his golden boy right now, Blackthorn still has no clue how to navigate this political landscape and is like saying absurd things like, yeah, man, we just lost a ton of guys. Why don't I give you your old ship back, give you free range to sail, and have you shoot cannon from the sea, even though like I'm just taking you at your face value word right now. Shooting the Portuguese nonetheless, not even the Japanese right now.
Yeah, absolutely insane by Blackthorn. But I actually do like your point on maybe giving Mariko some cover if they can all say that Blackthorn has slept with someone else. Because as we will see later on in this episode, the gossip has been spreading. But let's keep it moving. Oh, let's see. All right, so why isn't this moving? All right, yeah. So later on that night, Ashido makes his move back in Osaka, and they start. Well, he does several things. First, and when I say Ashido, I should also say, AKA Lady Ochiba, because she's really the puppet master behind the scenes. But what Ashido does is he first locks the castle down, and he forces the other regions to stay, and he holds them hostage. So he holds Kiyama, Ono, and Sugiyama hostage. Give me a second. I got to turn down my heat so it doesn't bleed into this mic. Be back in a second. All right, I'm back. So yeah, where was I? Yeah, so he first locks the castle down and he holds the other regions hostage, and then he also lights the pigeon coop on fire, and that's the coop that Toranaga's remaining number two Hirumatsu has been using to communicate with Toranaga. So knowing that, Hirumatsu knows if he stays in Osaka, he's dead. So he immediately goes to Toranaga's wife Kiri, and he tries to get her and that other woman. I don't know what her role is, but Shizu. He tries to get him out of there, but Shizu is pregnant. There's no way she can ride a horse in this type of chaotic element, so they're forced to stay. And they tell Hirumatsu, "You go. It has to be you. You got to go warn Toranaga." This is a huge moment because this is Ashido definitely making his move. What do you think about that?
I think that this never would have happened had Lady Ochiba come into the fray here. This seems like she has pushed some of that aggressiveness, some of that fire, no pun intended, into that decision making process. Um, I wonder if this is going to bring any other allies to Toranaga's side, though, who are other lords throughout Japan, because this is a pretty brazen power move to consolidate right here.
Yeah, and we had that or not negotiation in the previous episode, but the scene when Toranaga is kind of going, or not Toranaga, when Ashido is asking the other Council of Regents who they want to vote in as their fifth member, and it seemed more like a democracy at that point. But you're right, this is him now just swinging his dick and making his move against not just Toranaga but everyone. Um, so pretty wild by Ashido. This I titled Portuguese Panic, but the Portuguese are panicking because now they can't get into Osaka Castle. It's been locked out. So one of the religious guys, I don't know what his role is, one of Del Aqua, he's pissed because he can't get into Osaka, and then Alvido thinks that Ochiba's behind all of this. So Alvido kind of understands what everything is, where everything is heading. He's a really smart dude. He knows that Ochiba is the one behind this because he says, look, all of this changed the second she came back. Whereas Del Aqua doesn't really respect her power yet, right? Maybe because she's a woman, whatever. He just doesn't really respect her, and he doesn't think that she's the driving force. He doesn't take her seriously as a threat. And Alvito also says something interesting at the end. He suggests that maybe they should try to work with Toranaga, but Delacqua refuses. What'd you think about that?
I think it's pretty clear that they've got to start circling the wagons a little bit. At the end, there's that little line that sneaks in there, like, "Geez, well, we better keep things good with him after all this goes down." Like, there's still this faint idea that this guy might actually be important for us later on, even if we're not going to ally with him immediately. It makes a whole lot of sense why Twitter doesn't alienate these guys at this point, because you can, it's no surprise they put this scene in like 2 scenes after they just had that conversation about not fighting the Portuguese, because there is something to be gained from these guys, especially if they see somebody as anti-church, which Lady Ochiba is. Guess who is pro-church? Mariko. I wonder if that has any sort of play into this as to why she's like in this scheme as Toranaga's right-hand woman, so to speak. It could, it might not, it might just be grasping at straws here, but it seems like a pretty decent coincidence that they already have inward relationships with these dudes on like basically on deck.
Oh yeah, that's a good call too. I also thanks for reminding me that they do mention that Lady Ochiba is not religious, so she's not a Christian and she fucking hates that shit. So there are several reasons for her to be an enemy towards the Portuguese. All right, back to Lady Oshiba. She's brushing her son's hair. Remember, he's both her son and he is the heir. He is the guy who is gonna take over once he comes of age. But anyways, Ochiba is brushing her son's hair, and then she's having flashbacks, and we see these flashbacks of her and Mariko back in the day when they were really good friends, and we see how devastated she was when Mariko married Buntaro and was sent away. And then we get another more sinister flashback to when her father was killed, the night that her father was killed, and she had to run. So basically, once her father was murdered, one of the maids comes in and is basically like, "You got to get out of here, never come back." So we see that flashback, and we kind of see the driving force behind a lot of Ochiba's pain. Comments?
I like the use of the dual flashbacks that we're getting now, because Mariko and Ochiba have these stories to tell that are intertwined in so many ways that then diverge, and it feels like they're about to meet again pretty soon. This is the moment their lives were essentially turned upside down, and their childhood friendship becomes something else entirely. Like you said, the seeds that get planted here grow into the bitterness that Ochiba shows in the present day.
Yes, well said. This one I titled "A Night at the Theater" because this scene gets kind of crazy. But everyone is being held hostage in Osaka, so they might as well go see a play that night. And I think this is called a NOH type of theater. I didn't look specifically on what that means, but it's just a type of play. And so the Council of Regents are all there, and we first see Kiyama and Sugiyama talking. Kiyama is kind of oblivious. He thinks like everything's all good. Hey, once we get that fifth member in the council, we're going to vote to impeach Toranaga. We're going to kill his ass, and then everything's going to be all good. Sugiyama's like, dude, no, we're already being held hostage right now. What makes you think anything's going to change even after we kill Toranaga? Like, for all intents and purposes, we're at war right now. So Sugiyama kind of sees where it's actually going. And I got to give that old man credit because I kind of shit on him last episode where I was like, hey, Sugiyama's kind of an idiot, but I was wrong. I got to take my L on that. Anyways, the play itself is dedicated to the late Taiko, who originally ruled Japan before this Council of Regents. And I think the name is pronounced Daiyun. I might be fucking that up, but she was actually the Taiko's wife, but she wasn't able to give birth to a son. So Ochiba was actually one of the Taiko's concubines or consorts, and she's the one who was able to successfully give birth to a son. So that's how these women are linked together. And Daiyun tells Ochiba, look, don't align with the Shido. He's like above average at best. Like, she's basically saying align with Toranaga, that's the smart one. And Ochiba does not care. She's not fazed by that. And while this play is going on, I think we get more flashbacks. So we get the flashback from Ochiba's perspective on how she got involved with the Taiko in the first place. So basically, after her father was killed, some shit went down, and then the Taiko took over, and he was running Japan, and the Taiko's wife, Daiyun, tells Ochiba when she's really young, look, us women, like, we got to deal with a lot of shit. You know, it sucks, but here's the deal. I can't give my husband the heir. I'm not able to have the son. So, like, I want you to try. And if you can try, your new name, instead of Rory, it'll be Ochiba. And you'll have a lot of power, but, like, basically you'll be very valued in the family, right? Like, if you can deliver the son, if you can deliver the heir. And that's basically her backstory. That's how she became who she is and how she's in her current position. And then the play ends with the lead actor in the play, the guy who is playing the Taiko in the play. He's actually a lord himself. His name is Lord Ito, but he's much more consumed with acting as his passion as opposed to, like, fucking being a lord. Like, he's just a theater kid, right? And Ashido and Ochiba talk to him after, and they basically strong arm him into becoming the 5th council member. They ask nicely, but Ito basically knows, like, he can't say no. So he becomes the 5th council member, and Ashido then wonders why Ochiba hates Toranaga so much. She says nothing. She just says, get rid of him and you'll be the guy. I just need him gone. So what'd you think about just that entire night at the theater, essentially? A lot of shit came out.
Yeah, the number one takeaway is that Ochiba is so much more dangerous than I ever believed before this episode. Like, the moves that she's making and all the pent up rage and, like, hardship and trauma that she's been through. She basically went to a play to, like, watch a reenactment of her, like, I mean, not exactly, like, happily and consensually having this guy's kid and reenacted in front of her. There's that whole concept of, like, looking fate in the eyes, as Dayun says at one point, where we see close-ups on Ochiba's eyes and we see close-ups on the eyes of the actor, which is like this creepy porcelain mask. So I think there's definitely some symbolism in that one. Sugiyama, you got to watch out, man, because this lady is up to no good right now. She is not about this. You got to be real careful right now, because now she's moved on from her past. I think she's out for blood. Ishido clearly had no control over the situation. Now he has even less. You can tell that she's manipulating him already, and she has a lower opinion of the Taiko than anybody else did. She even makes comments about how Ito is taller and how Ishido can be the shadow that people are looking at instead of the Taiko's shadow. So she's already playing the field very, very well. I would definitely watch out for this one. Gives it some slight Cersei Lannister vibes, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a good comp. And I do appreciate you bringing up that she does not like the Taiko, because we do get some scenes in there where it shows that she was basically forced to have sex with him. And I also think it's revealed that though Taiko's wife was drugging her and stuff like that to get her to have sex. So none of it was really at her own free will. She had no choice. Her father just got murdered, so there's nothing she could really do. So she actually hates the fucking Taiko. So way to mention that. All right, this one's called Crimson Sky, and this will be mentioned again towards the end of the episode. But Hiramatsu barely makes it to Toranaga's. He damn near passes out and dies before he gets to the village, but he does get to the fishing village of Ajiro, and they hold court that night, right? Just kind of discussing what's going on. So the members are, you got Toranaga, you got Nagakado, his son, you got Omi and Yabu. You got Blackthorn's not there, but you do have Hiramatsu. Actually, is Blackthorn there? Blackthorn might be there. Anyways, they're holding court. They're kind of discussing what's going on, and Hiramatsu says, look, we got to go with Crimson Sky. And basically what Crimson Sky is just this fucking suicide mission where they just, like, charge Osaka Castle and just kill everyone involved, and then I guess Toranaga becomes the leader, aka the Shogun. And Yabu's like, dude, you guys are nuts. We are going to get destroyed if we just rush Osaka head on. Now, Toranaga does have a brother that they're going to try to reach out to if they did Crimson Sky to link up forces to give them a little bit more manpower. But Crimson Sky is basically just a blitzkrieg, right? Toranaga is thinking about doing Crimson Sky, but then, hold on for a second, might have lost Damon. Toranaga is thinking about doing Crimson Sky, but then Omi interjects and is basically like, wait, why rush into Crimson Sky right now if, we don't have to? Like, why rush to our death? Toranaga is pissed off, but he does end up agreeing. And he basically says, all right, fine, we're not going to do Crimson Sky, but you guys better come up with a plan to actually keep us all alive. Damon, you're back, right? So we got Damon
Yeah,
back.
all good.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I just ended up breaking down this part of the scene where they're discussing things where Toranaga almost hits the red button and starts going through Crimson Sky, but then is like, last minute, no, I'm not going to do Crimson Sky, because Omi's the one who's actually telling him, hey, be a little bit more patient. And Toranaga's pissed, and he's like, find a plan, they'll keep us alive. And he storms off. So what'd you think about that situation?
Just the terminology of calling it Crimson Sky. Like, I'm thinking, like, if you're playing a game of Madden, you're doing Engage 8 on defense or Hail Mary on offense. The funniest part of the episode to me was that when he mentions Crimson Sky, like, some of the guys are like looking at each other like, oh yeah, it's Crimson Sky time, let's go. So like, that was kind of interesting. This shows where I think everyone's head is at, because if you're to calculate these odds right now, what is it, like 10-15% that it might work? I mean, if Yabu thinks it's a shit idea, it's going to be pretty damn risky. Nagakata still does not get it. Buntaro is war ready at all times, so we can't really take his opinion at face value. He's the kind of guy that only feels at home during combat, so of course he's going to be
Yeah.
down to go out in a blaze of glory. Toranaga doesn't want to run into anything because that's not really who he is. I mean, he's a planner. He's like the spider that wants you to get into his web. He's not trying to go find you in the wild. I think that for him to do this plan, it's going to
Yeah,
take a
and
lot
and
of encouragement.
I also forgot to mention that Toranaga does get fucking pissed at Nagakado at one point when Nagakado's like, "You'll be the Shogun," and then Toranaga's like, "Dude, I don't want to be the Shogun." He emphasizes that he never wanted to be the Shogun. He doesn't want to be the sole ruler of Japan. So I thought that part was interesting because he actually got pissed, and he also says that he never lost wars because he never started them first. So he's a counterpuncher. And if you guys have ever played Risk or anything like that, you know those players that just end up like they never attack, they just build up the entire time. Like that's what Toranaga ideally would want to be if he could have it his way. All right, let's go to the next scene. I call this the art of the deal, and this scene's hilarious because it's basically it's Mariko negotiating the rate that it would cost to get a hooker for Blackthorn. So she meets with this woman Jin who's running the brothel, and she wants Blackthorn to get with Kiku, who was she's like the most sought after courtesan in the region. She's the one that what's it called, that we saw in episode 1, basically having sex with that with the scribe dude for Yabu, and she's the one that is currently having sex with Omi and who Omi is in love with. So she's the most sought after courtesan. I guess she's got like basically fire pussy, basically. That's what they're saying. But it's this like hilarious back and forth haggle scene where Jin, the madame, is basically saying, hey, look, the rate starts at 500 Monmei. I don't know what that unit of measurement really entails. Let's just say it's like $500, all right? And that's where she starts the rate off at. She's like, yeah, we just had an earthquake. A lot of things are broken, so it's going to start at 500. And then Mariko is hilarious. She's like, oh, I didn't pay for like all of the region. I just paid for one night with Kiku, so like no 500. It's a hilarious back and forth. They end up settling at 300. And throughout the negotiation, Jin, the woman who runs the brothel, she kind of drops some hints like, oh, Mariko, like, we never see you without Blackthorn. Like, she kind of is kind of being shady the entire time. And then that's kind of what gets Mariko to be like, all right, I'm done like negotiating. I don't really want to discuss this topic. Let's just do 300. Like, it will cost 300. So what'd you think about the art of the deal?
It was pretty fascinating to watch. The tension keeps building. The eye contact. At one point, they cut to Fuji, and Fuji's just like totally engrossed in the conversation going on. She's just totally just locked in. Even the teacup getting set down has a dramatic purpose here. It's very well done scene. You're definitely right about the fact, like Jin mentioning Blackthorn a couple of different times to get the upper hand back on the negotiation was some dirty work, but I think it got the job done. especially based on how fast Mariko budged off of playing hardball as soon as that card got pulled. It was like, hey, you're right,
Yeah,
300,
and
you got
I
everything.
have friends, not me, friends who've been to the strip club and they've had similar types of negotiations like this, and anything goes to try to get the rate that you need. Anyways, let's just keep moving forward before I say something that's gonna get me in trouble. As this is all going on, we see a quick scene of Omi just being jealous as fuck. This has gotta suck if you're Omi, right? Like you're in love with Kiku, whose job it is to like entertain gentlemen and basically be a high end escort for powerful men. So like you're just putting yourself in a really bad position by being in love with her. But love is love, he loves her, and Kiku's like, this is gonna mean nothing, like it, it's like it's just a wild scene. She's basically like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck Blackthorn, but it's just not that big of a deal. But Omi's obviously pissed. So yeah, what'd you think about that?
Omi is he's just taken a lot of losses lately. If he wasn't Yabu's nephew, I would think it's about time for him to flip and run on this whole thing because he's getting fed up with Toranaga. He looks like, I mean, his girl's been snatched. Blackthorn has now snatched two girls. I don't know if that can really stand without any sort of payback down the line. I've never seen this play out in the real world like this or in fiction, so I'm just not sure it's going to be able to be a clean ending for him. But
Yeah,
Omi
this
is
yeah,
not doing too
and
well.
we'll talk a little bit more about this later because there's a more ruthless scene for Omi. But all right, we get to Blackthorn's big night. Yay! Mariko escorts Blackthorn up to the brothel, and basically before they enter the brothel, Blackthorn's like, okay, does anyone know that we fucked in Mariko? Or like, does Toranaga know and stuff like that? And Mariko's just like, don't say anything. Just don't say shit. And then they walk into the brothel and we meet Kiku. And Kiku is well spoken. She's elegant. She kind of really just commands the room and takes over. So she's pouring sake for Blackthorn. Blackthorn's starting to get a little bit hammered, get a little bit tipsy. Mariko's translating the entire time. Mariko's kind of telling Blackthorn like what to say, the etiquette. He's supposed to compliment Kiku on being beautiful, on really pouring the sake well, stuff like that. So the back and forth is coming, and Kiku is not dumb, so she can sense the sexual tension between Blackthorn and Mariko. She's paying attention to their body language. She knows that something is up between them. So Kiku gives this speech where she's basically like, yeah, we're called, the Willow's world because you can kind of come here, like, we keep secrets. You can forget about everything here. You're just in your own world, right? Like basically just saying like, everything that happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, like that type of ordeal. And so then she goes, okay, I'm gonna go into the private room. I'm gonna invite Blackthorn there. She tells Mariko that, would you like to join us? So a threesome is almost about to go down. And like you can almost see Mariko think about it, but then she's like, wait, that would be so stupid to do that. Like I jeopardize everything. So Mariko refuses. She's like, no, I can't do it. And that's basically how it goes down. So like Kiku spends the night with Blackthorn. I must mention that the next morning, it's pretty crazy, but everyone in the village is just like outside watching them as Blackthorn. It's like just imagine if your like walk of shame was just like publicized to the entire town. Like the next morning happens and everyone in the village is already outside just watching Blackthorn walk out with Kiku. Even Omi is outside watching this. It's just such a ruthless scene. And like Blackthorn bows to Mariko, or I don't even know who he bows to. It's just a fucking wild scene. Like the entire village is basically like, did he do it? Did he smash? Did he smash? Yeah. What like how would you break that down, David?
Dude, there's a scene where it looks like a grandma and grandpa are like talking back and forth, and like, what is she saying? Like, do you think she let him hit? Like, how do you think it went? Like crazy, crazy scene. The the whole Willow World scene was a scene that I never saw
Yeah.
affecting me the way it did. Like, first of all, it sounds like a backwoods theme park, the Willow World. Very deceiving, but probably not the kind of place you should bring your kids. There are some definite stakes here because they got to go under the radar the whole time. Mariko could be in huge trouble. Then again, so could Blackthorn. He is still incredibly awkward with Japanese customs, but funny as hell. That line about the prostitute absolutely
Yeah.
killed me. But Kiku is up to some trickery as well, because that line about presence most keenly being felt with absence is definitely some deeper meaning meant here for Mariko. Could be a reference to Buntaro or her secret fling with Blackthorn, or like you said, just not really being in an area where people are going to know what you're doing. Like, you're basically in an area of secrecy here, which is one of a kind. Mariko prides herself on being able to be closed off to everybody, but this moment feels like she can no longer muster that kind of strength as it relates to Blackthorn. I don't know if she actually loves him or if he's just someone that shows her warmth and represents an escape from all that shit she dealt with from her previous life and from her terrible marriage to Bantaro, because she never really chose or wanted this path. But Blackthorn, there, she has some type of choice, if that makes sense, some agency. So the line about it being dark here feels more than just a cover for talk intimately. If you notice during that scene where Kiku is talking about like what the Willow world is all about, she moves to the other side of Mariko. So it's as if it's all coming through Mariko. And it's like Blackthorn and
I
Mariko are
like
having
that.
a conversation themselves, not as
Yeah.
if Kiku is either, right? So I think Kiku throws Mariko like a solid here, but she also does diss her because she knows she has some kind of advantage. And it feels like whenever somebody has an advantage, the women in this society don't really like to see each other win all the time, which is very interesting. But Mariko feels all that pain that she's had buried inside and resists the temptation like she's a goddamn soldier. The Blackthorn's return scene was wild because that previous scene is so emotionally charged. Like, I didn't think I was going to be feeling anything. I started watching a show about 1600s like Japan warfare. Like, that's crazy, man. But I definitely felt something there. Um, there are a couple of bozos, and in fact, like when they first show up with Omi watching on, and Kiku throws it back in Mariko's face when she makes the comments about looking forward
Oh
to seeing
yeah.
Blackthorn again. I know she's being polite, but it seems like her tune changed a little bit from the start of that. So that was
Blackthorn
quite
must have been pretty
interesting.
good, like at hitting it and stuff like that. Cause even the way Kiku was looking at Omi was like, she was like, "Nah, I'm done with you, bro." Like he hit it better, Like it was like that. I also gotta say, Blackthorn is the luckiest bastard ever. He has done brave things and he like has been a soldier and that's why he's earned these things. But dude, he should have been killed right away, like the second he was captured. But instead, he's like gotten his own fief.
Yeah,
He's managing a ton of people. He's getting paid. He's got his own like little house like with servants and shit like that. And the general like the lord is paying for his like his paying for sex for him. Like it's just an insane deal that he has right now. All right, let's keep it moving because this shit gets crazy. So then obviously Mariko reports to Toranaga. She's like, yes, like, the engine has fucked. That's basically what she says. Like the engine has smashed. And Toranaga's like very pleased. And then Toranaga ends up asking, uh, he ends up asking Mariko about her childhood. And the reason behind this is because he really wants to know more about Ochiba because he knows that Mariko and Ochiba were super tight back in the day. So he's like, dude, why is Ochiba the way that she is now? Like, why is she so ruthless and cold? And Mariko kind of defends her friend. She's like, dude, like, we're women in this world. You guys as men fight wars when you want to fight wars. Like, we're fighting wars constantly. Like we're looked down upon in this society. We have no rights. Like we're always fighting a war. And she says that she hasn't seen Ochiba since she got married to Buntaro, and she's still pissed off at her dad for marrying her off to Buntaro. And Toranaga's like, dude, like your dad always like loved the shit out of you. He thought you were a savage. Like he had great plans for you. He married you off as a plan to protect you because basically like her dad knew that he was gonna revolt against Ochiba's father, Lord Kuruda. So her dad knew that he was going to make that move, and to keep her safe, he married her off. So her dad actually was looking out for her the entire time, and Toranaga kind of drills that idea into Mariko's head. What did you think about that?
it really shows us what we were being led along the path for the whole episode. Mariko and Ochiba aren't so different in a lot of ways. Both women, both forced into situations they didn't want to be in, both battling tooth and nail to make their own sort of freedom or agency. Mariko is just way nicer about it. Um, that line, "We all have things we must war against, yet most of us do it with honor," from Toranaga. And then when Mariko fires back, like, "Forgive me, but most of you are men. A man may go to war for many reasons. A woman is simply at
Fire.
war," was like, that was a haymaker. Uh, yeah, it was a mic drop moment, and it even took him by surprise too. Uh, I did like that Mariko got the moment of closure from Toranaga that her dad was actually looking out for her, because that was the only way she wasn't going to get slaughtered after he knew what he was going to do. And then Toranaga, he just knows how to pump everybody up. That little closer, your war isn't over. Where it's like, nah, you still got some unfinished business. Don't you worry about it. Like, you're gonna finish what your dad started.
Toranaga
Pretty
is
cool.
an
I liked
elite
it.
motivator. If he was in today's society, he'd be running for fucking president or some shit. Um, at the very least, he'd be making 25 G's doing like keynote speeches for companies. Um, all right, let's keep it moving. A few more scenes left. All right, this is where it starts getting fucking crazy. We're gonna title this "Sugiyama Refuses," and so basically we cut back to Osaka Castle, and now that they found a dummy fifth council member with Lord Ito who just wants to act, he just wants to be in theater, but now he's part of the Council of Regents. And they're supposed to have this sham vote, right? Like, it's just a simple sham vote. Like, we're all gonna vote for Lord Ito to be in. Hey, he's in, and then we're just gonna vote to impeach Toranaga, and then we can wage war on Toranaga. Should be pretty cut and dry. And Kiyama's like, yep, no problem with that. Ono's like, yep, no problem with that. Lord Ashido is the one coming up with the idea. Well, really, Lady Ochiba, but Lord Ashido's obviously like, no problem with that. And Ito is the one getting voted in. He's got no other say. But Sugiyama out of nowhere is like, nah, I'm not doing it. And it shocks everyone. And he basically calls out everyone there. He's like, dude, you guys are all fucking traitors. I'm the one who's actually loyal to the realm. And he says there's no proof of any plot to kill the Taiko's son. There's none. So why are we being held hostage? He says he's not going to vote until he's no longer hostage. And then he basically storms the fuck out. Insane mic drop moment. It's going to cost him dearly. But what did you think about Sugiyama just saying no?
For all the shit that these guys have pulled, that Ishido has led, that has been clearly shady business, I love that Sugiyama draws the line at, we're going to let the theater kid into our club. I don't think so, man. This is not happening. Like, that was where he was like, no. This is a sham. I can't do this. I'm glad he finally found the backbone, but in many cases here, this show does not really reward the guy who or girl who finds their honor like at the last minute. So you gotta
Yeah,
feel for the
all his
guy.
honor shit is a ruse. Like, it's really about scheming in the background and just absolute power. Um, so obviously, refusing is gonna cost him dearly. So before we get into that, let's Lady Ochiba meets with Ashido, and she basically tells him, "All right, you want to know why I fucking hate Toranaga? Here's why I hate Toranaga." It kind of reminded me of the Joker speech in the Dark Knight when he's like, "You want to know how I got these scars?" But she basically says like, "Look, man, like Toranaga, uh, Toranaga is the one behind her father's death. So even though uh, Mariko's dad, Akechi, was the one who actually killed her father, she fully believes that it was Toranaga who was the one who put the battery in his back. And she might be right. We don't know this yet." And then she kind of talks about how, like, hey, hundreds of women had sex with the Taiko, but only she was strong enough to give him an heir. And she gives this insanely fucking ruthless speech. And then this is where she even says that, hey, the Taiko's wife even drugged me, like, while I had sex with him and stuff like that. She basically is like, I'm the boss in town. And then we see at the end, Sugiyama tries to flee with his entire family, but Ashido stops them, and they are slaughtered to pieces. So first, we're not going to say first real act of violence, but one of the Council of Regents members is now dead as fuck. What do you think about that?
We could see it coming, but I do like what Ochiba is bringing to this, because it didn't feel like the other side had any villain formidable enough to really do any damage or make any moves based off of pure instinct. But this is a whole different story. We get back to the line about having to look Fate in the eyes, and then she takes it a step further, like, yeah, I scratched him out. I scratched out Fate's eyes, which is a pretty badass thing to say. Um, Ishido almost in that next scene looks a little like touched by what he heard from Ochiba. Like he's now taking on that lead, he's taking that persona. He's seen the only way she was able to rise up, and now some guy who's really kind of a, I'm not going to say pathetic because I would, he's probably an average guy, but yeah, just kind of a Joe Schmo politician, bureaucrat. But he really wants that power. And what he's going to have to do for it is like not just cast votes and raise your hand if you want a guy kicked out. It's like you're going to have to get down and dirty, put your horses in front of this guy trying to escape and cut some throats. So I thought that was the final transition of Ishido to the side of like,
Dude,
all
I
right,
love
we're fucking doing
Ishido's
this
fucking
now.
death stare. It's so lit. I just love it. So the actor who like plays him does such a good job. And to your point on how he was average at best, dude, that's a great point because that's mentioned earlier in the episode when Daiyon is giving Ochiba advice and she's basically saying like, look, I know that Ishido was my husband's favorite, but he's like average at best. She says like he's like okay at things, right? Like she says he's good, but he's not great, right? Whereas Toranaga is fucking great. But Ochiba doesn't care because she knows she can manipulate Ishido. And it gets a little bit sexual in that moment. Just this scene right here, like that shit got sexual. And you see Ishido kind of just like turning away. All right, let's get to the last scene. And this is now I titled the first scene when we mentioned Crimson Sky as Crimson Sky. This one's titled Crimson fucking Sky because they're on this warpath now. Like there is no turning back. So Toranaga gives another one of his insanely motivating speeches, and he's got everyone in attendance, right? It's the hi hi ho. It's that crazy ass like chant, and he's got his entire squad. He's got his number 2 hero Matsu. He's got his son Nagakado. He's got Yabu. He's got Omi. You know, the entire squad is there, and he's basically saying, "Look, we've gotten word of Sugiyama's death. Like, and I think he says in his speech, correct me if I'm wrong. I think he says like, look, I don't want to be the one to rule Japan, but I'm loyal to the late Taiko, so we will now rush in and obliterate his enemies." Yeah. So I guess they're sending it, and he says, "Hey, we're gonna hit my brother up. Like we're gonna hit bro up and see if he wants to link up on this raid on Osaka." And what I found was interesting about this is like even Yabu and Omi are like, "Hey man, maybe we're secretly plotting against this guy, but damn it, is this guy kind of the man?" Like even like it's just motivating. Like all the men are super motivated, but then you see Mariko, and it's like a big contrast between like how the men see the society, how the women see the society. Because Mariko's like, dude, so many people are gonna die. Like that's like all that's in her head. So that's basically how this episode ends. And before I ask for your take, he mentions like how the specifics of it will be he'll be impeached and then war will be declared on his clan. So that's like how politically they're gonna go through with ordering the war against Toranaga. But what did you think about that ending scene? Crimson fucking Sky, man.
It feels like Fight Night should have been playing in the background, and everybody was just like should be to like kind of like bumping and rhythm because that was the entire vibe around the place. The comparison you made with Mariko's reaction to all the men was spot on. She knows that this is essentially an elective war. Like this was chosen in a certain kind of way. So this is going to happen now. There's no really turning back. All the guys are hyped. Like you said, like Omi, for as much shit as we give him, terrific facial actor. Like I feel like I'm watching a different version of like Woody Harrelson in True Detective. The way he paints everything on his face, the way high praise. But like this guy's doing a nice job. And then Yabu's face, man, that's like the most locked in I've seen Yabu the entire time. Like just like ready to go. People are gonna die, but damn it, it's going to be great television.
So I think we have 4 episodes left, right? This is going to be a 10-episode miniseries. Is if I'm wrong, let me know. I've been wrong about so many fucking things, but yeah, like so this is gonna heat up. It's already starting to heat up, but we're just gonna be at war for the next 4 episodes. But yeah, that pretty much does it for the episode. I want to see what Yabu is, where his head is at, how if he's still gonna like continue to try to let Ishido know that maybe he's working his side. it is funny because even in this moment, like you said, Damon, like Yabu looks locked in. Like that shit had me hyped. Like seeing Yabu locked in had me start to get like locked in, you know? Like it was crazy. All right. Well, hey, that does it for our episode 6 breakdown. Appreciate everyone who joined and watched. Like really cool to have live viewers, period. And we will be back with episode 7 next week, right, Damon? And then any final thoughts on the episode?
We're set up for the ultimate game of chess, but instead of a chess game, I think it's going to look more like a card game war, but like just such a mess.
Yeah,
It's
I was
gonna
literally
be great.
thinking the card
I can't
game
wait.
war where you're just literally flipping your card and just seeing who has like the high card wins, and that's just what it's going to be. And then quick plug, we'll end up doing episode 7 next week, probably a day after the episode airs. And then we're also doing House of the Dragon right now. But those videos we're not doing live streams for. We're actually doing our straight B-roll videos where we're putting a bunch of clips and footage and stuff. So expect episode 2 of season 1 to come down soon. We're getting ready because come June, we are going to be covering House of the Dragon season 2 as it's dropping. So get ready for that. And then I'll be doing Tokyo Vice later on this week, another Japanese show that's fucking amazing. Definitely got to go check it out. So I'll be streaming Tokyo Vice episode, it might be episode 9. So yeah, that does it for this live stream. Appreciate everyone for checking it out. We will catch y'all later.
Later.